Behold the humble light switch. Where once we cowered in the sickly glare of gaslight, praying we would burn the house down, we now command illumination at the mere flick of a finger. What a time to be alive, truly, the pinnacle of human endeavor. No, light switches are rubbish. Why do I have to stand up to turn the lights on? Okay, the switches themselves are fine, I guess. They turn the lights on, they turn the lights off. They do get the job done, but the second you try to make them smart, everything seems to fall apart. Until now. Maybe. So, go grab a coffee. I'll get one too. And I'll get into it. Welcome to Foxy's Lab. I'm Foxy, and in this episode I'm reviewing the Repenic Smart Dimmer switch. It's a Zigbee 3 dimmer that claims to solve basically every problem I ever had with smart light switches in the UK. Full disclosure, Repenic sent me this dimmer to review. They haven't paid me, they haven't seen this video before you have, and they have absolutely zero say in what I think of it. If I think it's rubbish, I will tell you it's rubbish. I've also got a very specific challenge that I've been trying to solve for years. A proper nightmare multi-way setup that no smart switch has ever been able to handle. Repenic reckons that theirs can. We'll see about that. Obviously this isn't the first device on the market to solve a smart switch problem, but it's the first I've seen that solves all of them. Because there are many problems with smart switches. If you've ever looked into getting a smart light switch, especially in the UK, you'll know exactly what I'm about to say. There are 4 big problems with smart light switches, and they've been driving me mad for years. Problem 1, they're all ugly. I'm sorry, but they are. Most smart switches on the market are just cheap white plastic boxes. The fancy ones are exactly the same, but they're black instead of white. The white ones especially are just dirt magnets. Look at the grime on this one. If you've got a period property, or honestly just any home where you care about what things look like, sticking a plasticky smart switch on the wall feels like putting a bumper sticker on a Bentley. There are tons of beautiful looking dumb switches on the market, and yet there's a serious lack of them in the smart switch world. Repenic clearly have this problem solved. Look at this thing, it's bloody gorgeous! It's somehow both contemporary and classic at the same time. I went for the brass one, but you can also get them in black, silver, and even white steel if you're really into white light switches. Hey, I'm not here to judge. You can even mix and match the backplate and the knob colours. Problem 2, they don't play nice with smart bulbs. If you've already got smart bulbs like Hue or IKEA bulbs, a traditional light switch is actually a nightmare. You turn the switch off, your smart bulb loses power. Now it's not smart anymore, it's just a bulb that's off. You can't turn it back on with your phone, you can't use your automations, you can't do anything until somebody physically walks over and flicks the switch again. What you actually want is a smart dimmer that can control the power level without fully cutting it. That way your bulbs stay powered and connected, and the switch becomes another way to control them rather than the only way. Most smart switches on the market don't handle this well at all, and some can even damage the bulb itself. I don't yet know if this is a solved problem here. The spec sheet doesn't mention smart bulbs specifically, so something we're going to have to test ourselves. Problem 3, the neutral wire situation. This is the primary reason I don't have smart switches in my house. Most smart switches need something called a neutral wire to work. Basically, the neutral wire gives the switch constant power, so its electronics can stay on even when the light is off. Which makes perfect sense for a dumb switch, but not so much for a smart one. The problem is that a lot of UK homes, especially anything built before the 1970s, don't have a neutral wire at the light switch. The way older British houses were wired, the neutral goes up to the ceiling rows instead, and the switch only gets the live and switched live wires. So you buy a smart switch, excitedly open up your wall box, and there's no neutral. Game over, back to the cupboard it goes. My house was built before America existed, so yeah, no neutral wires in this place. You either need an electrician to run new wiring, which is expensive, messy, and honestly a massive pain, or you need a switch that doesn't require a neutral wire, like this one. Problem 4, multi-way switching. This is the one that makes many people give up entirely, and to be frank, this one's personal. If you've got a light that's controlled from 2 or more switches, like a hallway light with a switch at the top and bottom of the stairs, which is basically just every house in this country, making that smart is a massive headache. Most smart switches just don't support multi-way setups. The ones that do often need complicated wiring changes or expensive hub systems, and even then, you usually lose the ability to dim them from both locations. You get smart control at one switch and then just a dumb on-off at the other. Turn the wrong switch off and you're back to not having smart control again. Now multiply that problem. I've got 3 light switches on 2 multi-way circuits, all connected together to a single shared switch point. 4 switches in total, all controlling interconnected circuits. I've been wanting to make those switches smart for years, years. Every product I've looked at either doesn't support multi-way at all and only supports basic two-way setups, or requires you to keep one dumb switch in the chain. I've never even attempted it because the research always shows it's a dead end before I've started. Nothing has properly solved this. It is utterly mental to me that making a multi-way circuit smart is still this hard. Repenic say that their dimmer can do all of the above whilst still looking gorgeous. They reckon you can replace every switch in a multi-way circuit with their hardware and get full smart dimming at every position. If that's true, this will be the first product that I've found that actually solves all of my smart switch problems. Before you start doing anything with electricity, switch it off at the breakers first. You don't actually need to turn all of the electricity in the house off, you only need to kill the light circuit, which for me is this one. If you don't know what you're doing, don't do this yourself. Get an electrician in. Don't take your life into your own hands for something silly like this. As I've said before in previous videos, don't pick a fight with electricity. Electricity will always win. Also, just because you've killed the power at the breaker doesn't necessarily mean that this thing is dead. Just turning the light on and off doesn't actually properly test anything. So let's get this opened and test it properly. Little pro tip, sometimes when you take a switch like this off, especially if it's been on the wall for a while, you might find it pulls the paint off with it. A really good way to prevent that is to score around the outside. But don't do that, that's bad. I'm going to repaint it anyway, so it's fine. And it'll pop right off. You can just use a voltmeter, but you have to know how to use a voltmeter. And apparently, these are a bit more reliable anyway. These are literally only a few quid. I think I paid £3 for this one. So I've temporarily turned the fuse back on so I can show you what a live test would look like. So the way you use these is dead simple. There's a little metal bit at the end. Put your finger on the metal bit because that will complete the circuit. And then just touch the screwdriver at any metal part that's making contact with the circuit itself. And you can see the light turning on. Now I've turned the circuit off. Nothing. So now I know that this is dead. Okay, so I can actually see a problem straight away. A lot of UK light sockets have quite shallow back boxes. And I think this one is probably too shallow for this. If you look at the difference in depth, that's quite considerable. This is often the case because there are relay switches in here and they require more depth. I think I can just replace the back box. It's not the end of the world. But again, this adds more complexity. If this is too complicated for you, just get an electrician in. Word of advice before you start. When you open something like this up, just take a photograph of what it looks like now. Not only can you then use it for reference, but if you do have to abort and go back to how it was, you can easily put this back together. So now all I'm going to do is loosen all of the screws, holding the existing switch in place, and that's the old switch out. Okay, the back box is too shallow, and I can see from taking the screws out, there's no depth behind this wall, so this is going to need chiseling out. Another really, really shallow back box. This is going to be a pain. 3D printing for the win! I realised last night I could just print back box extenders. So now I can fit these behind the light switch. And I should have bags of room. Let's get the old switch off. We are officially back to where we were yesterday. So the first thing we need to do is disassemble this, because obviously this is quite a pretty dimmer, but if you notice, there's no screw holes. Taking it apart's really, really easy. You just pop off the knobs, unscrew this little nut that's holding it on, and then the whole thing will just pop off nice and easily. And you can access everything there. If you want to, you can also take off the inner screw, and that will allow you to remove the fascia, and it'll give you direct access to the module. So if you've got a bit of a tight working space, that could be really, really handy. Right, what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to turn the circuit back on so I can test that these light switches actually work. Uh-oh, doesn't work. I'm very confused. This should be working. I'm almost wondering if one of these live wires has been damaged, because unfortunately these wires are really, really old. I could dig my multimeter out and test the cables, but I'm actually going to put the old light switch on and see what happens. It works fine on the old switch. What am I doing wrong? Probably should have read the instructions. So once again, lights turn on, they won't turn off. This is very confusing. So guess what? You can't just test one switch in isolation. You have to replace every single switch in the circuit in order to be able to test any of them. I kind of wish I hadn't bothered. All right, I'll do the downstairs one first. Yeah, no, that didn't work either. Turns out I actually did do it right on one of those attempts, but we'll cover that a bit more later. Right, last ditch effort before I get a man in. I actually had a word with Repenic and they sent me some diagrams that I could follow. Gonna give it one more go. So sick of taking this off the wall and putting it back on again. Attempt number 3 went pretty much the same way as attempt number 1 and 2, so I'm going to spare you that. In the end, it was all very, very stressful, and I had a little bit of a meltdown and ultimately decided I was just gonna get a man in. I apparently did need to get somebody in because this was way beyond me. So I'd like to introduce you to Samar from Galaxy Electrical, who has very, very kindly helped us out. I had no chance doing any of this. Can you please explain what the issues were?
Yes, sure. So when I came here, Alex explained me everything. What I've noticed, I've actually wired exactly the way Alex did it, and it was still flickering. So I wasn't sure what's going on. Then the next question I asked whether the bulb is dimmable or not, which Alex thought it's not a dimmable. So we used the dimmable bulb. And it started working fine, so fantastic. So that was success.
There was nothing wrong with the way I'd wired it up. I just forgot that dimmable bulbs exist. It was infuriating to know that. I could have saved like several hundreds of pounds, but you live and learn. Note to everybody watching this video, if you're going to use these, make sure you remember dimmable bulbs exist.
It's a Zigbee switch. We got to make sure we put in the right place. It's got to be where the main power comes from the fuse board. This is where the Zigbee switch needs to go, and then you can follow rest for the diagrams. I would say if you're not competent, then don't touch the electrics and call somebody who knows what he's doing. Yeah, apparently I should have taken my own advice because I said that earlier in the video and clearly I didn't know what I was doing. So yeah, just get someone in. Just get someone in to do it. This is actually quite a complex setup. Hopefully your house will be a little bit easier to do anyway. This was actually a bit weird, but just get someone in. Don't try it yourself. Because there's also apparently, did you say there was a risk that I could have kind of got luckier, but I could have blown yeah, absolutely. So if you wire the dimmer incorrectly, say if you had a live and neutral behind the dimmer, and if you were to wire incorrectly, then it can blow the dimmer coil. So there you can damage the dimmer. Another way you can damage the dimmer if you use a higher voltage bulb. Say if your dimmer is only capable of 50 watt, and if you use a 100 watt bulb, right, then that will blow the dimmer as well. So you got to make sure you match the dimmer capacity with the bulb.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Alex.
Okay, now everything is finally in place. I've screwed the back box in. I've also painted the surround so it actually matches the wall. It looks quite a lot nicer now, I think. The last bit's really, really easy. All you need to do is secure these modules to the plate with the right screw, the little one. As you can see, I've already done this one. These are actually secured in already. They do clip in, but it's just a good idea. Even once everything's screwed down, just try to dis-secure it properly. Probably a better thing to do this before you put it in. I'm just doing this for demonstration. Once those are in and nice and tight, you pop your faceplate on. Then you've got the bigger rings that secure the faceplate to the back. You just need to make sure that the screw holes are facing outwards. Pop them on. One thing you do want to do is you want to make sure that you line your threads up properly, because these can be quite fiddly. And if it's not lined up properly and it goes on wonky, then your actual dimmer knobs will be wonky as well. Then last bit, you just push these on. There's a flat bit at the back. Just make sure the flat bits are lined up with the nubbin and you're good to go. Okay, that installation was actually a nightmare. I will say though, we live in a really, really old house with really, really weird wiring. These look lovely. I'm so impressed with how they turned out. I was really worried that the 3D printed back box would look awful, but once it's painted up, it looks really nice. I think I actually prefer there's a little standout look, so I'm really, really happy with how they look. As dimmers, they work perfectly. We've actually been using them for a couple of days and they're fantastic. Now it's time to hook them up to the smart home. So remember, these things are Zigbee compatible. One interesting thing that I'm not sure how is going to work is Samar had to take one of the Zigbee modules from one of the downstairs ones and move it upstairs. So I've got one Zigbee module controlling down here and one Zigbee module controlling upstairs, which makes sense to me, but that's not how it arrived. The Zigbee modules are actually shipped together. I don't think it'll make a difference, but I guess we're about to find out. So even though the Zigbee modules came together in one light switch, they were actually removable. And it was a good job they were, because the switch downstairs was the main power in for the downstairs circuit, but the main power in for the upstairs circuit, weirdly, is this one. No idea why this house has weird electrics, but that meant that the Zigbee controller had to be in this one and another one had to be in the one downstairs. So this is now the area where we have to pair the upstairs devices. The pairing process is super easy. So basically all you do is you turn the light on and then you press it twice, and on the second press you hold it down until the lights start to flash. Magic. And then once it's in pairing mode, it's the same as doing anything else. So you just go to add Zigbee device. Yeah, I've paired these before, and so this is why it knows what it is. It's not magic. Simple as that. That's now paired. And I can control that nice and easily now through Home Assistant. Just like that. I'm not entirely convinced this thing is going to work with a smart bulb. I noticed when I was using non-dimmable bulbs, there was quite a lot of flickering. Let's give it a try. So I've got a colour smart bulb here just from Inner. This is an old Zigbee bulb that I just have lying around. So I'm going to plug this into the slot and see how well these switches work with a smart bulb. If this works, if this maintains smart bulb functionality whilst also being a smart switch, I'll be really, really impressed, because these two things normally, they don't play nicely together. Okay, this hasn't been paired yet, so let's just see what happens when we just turn it on. So the maximum brightness level, it does flicker quite a lot. But you only have to go down a few stops and it is actually quite stable. Flickers a bit at the minimum brightness level, but that's not too bad. See what happens when you pair it. Okay, interestingly, the bulb won't go into pairing mode. So that actually implies this is going to work. Because the problem is, to put an inner bulb into pairing mode, you have to fully power it on and off 6 times. I don't think it's fully powering off, which is exactly what you want for a smart bulb. So that's really, really interesting. This might actually work all right. Right, I'm going to go pair this separately upstairs and then I'll bring it back down and we'll see what happens. Okay, everything's paired now. It's still pretty stable. Let's see how controllable it is. This bulb is fine. This works no problem. But as soon as I set a specific colour, this bulb started flickering like crazy. The dimming function is no longer doing anything. It doesn't work reliably with a smart bulb, which is a shame, but it's not the end of the world. There isn't really a strong use case for using a smart switch and a smart bulb. The only benefit would be that you have the ability to turn it on and off from a switch while still controlling the colour of the bulb. That's a pretty niche use case. I've got to be honest, I don't really care about that. I did this for the video. I'm immediately going to take this out and put a regular bulb back in because I don't really need that. The only place where I actually find RGB bulbs interesting is for mood lighting, and that's nearly always lamps. I don't really want the big light to have RGB in it. So for me, this isn't a problem. Your mileage may vary. This might be an absolute deal breaker for you. And if that's the case, then yeah, I'm sorry to report, Repenic have not mastered the art of creating a smart switch which also can control smart bulbs reliably. It did sort of work for a minute, and it might just be that it requires some fiddly messing about to get it all working, but it's not working anymore. The switch literally does nothing. Actually, it sort of does work. I tried it again later on. I was actually using one smart bulb and one regular dimmable bulb, and I think that might have been the cause of the issue. I replaced both with smart bulbs and I got much better performance. It's still not great. There's still a very, very low range within the dimmable range that actually works adequately with a smart bulb. But if you're okay with having the dimmable range dramatically reduced, sort of fine. It does kind of work. It's not perfect, and I think it might vary from smart bulb manufacturer to smart bulb manufacturer, so I wouldn't necessarily take this as a, yeah, you're good to go. But it's all right. It sort of does the job. It's finally iced coffee season. Oh yeah. There's not that much to complain about. Alright, the smart bulb test didn't go quite as well as I wanted it to. I think it probably will work in many use cases, but probably not all use cases. Smart switches and smart bulbs have never played nicely. I'm going to consider this one not a solved problem, so if it is a deal breaker for you, that your smart switch and your smart bulb won't play nicely, these may not be for you. By all means, try it out. It might work for you. It sort of worked for me, but I'm not going to say it works reliably, so I'm not going to call that one a win. These have been paired to my smart home for a few weeks now and they've been solid. I haven't had any issues with the exception of one. Smart came back to do some electrical work for us and we had to have the power off for about 30 minutes. When the power came back on, the downstairs lights came straight back onto the network, no problem. The hallway lights lost their connection and never came back. I had to literally remove them from Home Assistant and repair them. I have since tested it. I have actually cut the power manually to the lights and then put them back on again a couple of times, and I haven't had the same issue since, so I might have just gotten unlucky. it's Zigbee. Zigbee is generally quite reliable as long as you've got a good stable network, which we have. So I think this was just one of those things that occasionally happens. It is quite a deep switch. If you've got a 16mm back box, this thing's not going to fit. You're going to need a 25mm one minimum. So that might be an issue. Usually you can use the Patras extender like I did. If you can't 3D print one, you can get them online really, really cheaply. So it shouldn't be an issue for most people, but it's worth considering. Another thing you're going to need to consider is that this is a metal fronted switch. As with any metal switch, you've got to be safe and actually earth the plate itself. You can do this in most boxes without issue, but just make sure you can first before you go and buy this thing. If you connect this thing to hubitat or homey, there's a bunch of extra modes that you can actually use, like a sunrise mode where you set the time, a duration, and then a target brightness, and then the light gradually ramps up from nothing to whatever you set it as, which you can use as a really nice way to wake up in the morning. There's also a moonlight mode where during a set time window you can actually have the light come on at a dim setting, so you can wander to the bathroom half asleep without searing your retinas off. There's also a co-sleeping mode where, again, kind of the opposite of the sunrise mode. You set a duration and a target and then the light slowly fades to off. I can totally see a use case for that, and I'm tempted to get one of these for my bedroom now. A few other features like dimming speed, power outage behaviour and starting brightness are also listed as only being available through hubitat and homey in the manual. However, when I paired it to Home Assistant through ZHA, those features were actually available to me, so it looks like Repenic are actually rolling out those features across the board. Can't guarantee that they'll be available when you buy it, but give it time. I suspect they will be there. Once I'd paired the downstairs dimmer switch, I noticed that I couldn't dim it anymore. Turned out this wasn't actually an issue with the switch. It was an issue with me. I hadn't realised you can set a minimum and a maximum brightness level on the switch itself. There's actually quite a lot of features built directly into the switch, no smart home required, and one of them is the ability to set a minimum and a maximum brightness level. And because I'm terminally unable to look at instruction manuals until I absolutely have to, I'd accidentally set the minimum and maximum brightness to the exact same level while I was trying to figure out how to pair it, which meant there was no longer any minimum or maximum brightness. It was just an on-off switch. It was easy to fix. All I needed to do was, funnily enough, read the instructions. Let's talk brass tacks and brass light switches. The single gang dimmer is currently 79 quid. If you want a 2 gang, it's 119, a 3 gang is 169, and then the 4 gang is 209 quid. Now that's not cheap, but considering the craftsmanship and how reliable these things are, I actually think they're quite fairly priced. Also bear in mind you only need to have one of their smart dimmer switches per lighting circuit. The rest can just be their regular dimmer switches, which are a little bit cheaper. Don't get me wrong, these aren't exactly budget prices, but when you compare them to similar non-smart switches of a similar quality, they're actually quite comparable. Yes, you can get dimmer switches for cheaper than this, but they're not going to look this nice. They're not going to be that higher quality. These are a premium product and that's going to come with a premium price. But as far as premium prices go, I don't think this is that bad. This is a great product. I know I keep gushing about how pretty these things are, but they really, really are pretty. They just look so beautiful on the wall. The craftsmanship that's gone into these things is just lovely. Honestly, if you want a smart switch that doesn't look like it crawled out of a clearance bin at Screwfix, this is the best one I've seen by a country mile. And if you've got the sort of multi-way nightmare that I just put it through, well, clearly it delivers. Also, with these things just being standard Zigbee, any Zigbee 3 compatible hub will work with them. I have these things paired to Home Assistant directly through ZHA, but they also work with like Homey, Philips Hue Bridge, Amazon Alexa, Google Home, Hubitat, Zigbee 2 MQTT, you name it. If it's Zigbee 3, these will work with it. They've also got a wide range of compatibility with bulbs. Not only do they work with LED bulbs, they also work with halogen and incandescent bulbs as well. It also has an energy insights feature which can track all of the power that's running through it, which is really nice to have. In terms of the non-smart home features, it also has a brightness memory, so whatever you set the dimmer switch to, when you turn the lights off or turn the lights on again, it will remember and stay at the same brightness level. If you want to get these, there's a link in the description and in a pinned comment. Also, if you use the code FOX10, you'll get a nice 10% discount off your order. If you've already got one of these on your wall, drop a comment and let me know how you're getting on. I'd love to hear from anyone else who's tackled a proper mental multi-way setup with this kit. Also, big thanks to Samar from Galaxy Electrical. I couldn't have done this without him. I've used him a couple of times now, and honestly, he's fantastic. I'll put his details on the screen and down below, so if you're in the Surrey area and you need a good electrician, highly recommend him. That's all.